There are many places on Earth that we are prohibited from entering, either because they're considered to be some of the scariest places, they're protected areas, or they're owned by governments who don't want members of the public snooping around. But there are some people who can't resist the urge to explore scary places, and very often they find themselves caught and on the wrong side of the law. Number 5. Varocia, located in the city of Famagusta, is the city's former #1 tourist destination that was abandoned when Turkey invaded and took control of Cyprus in 1947, and it now closely resembles a haunted place rather than a tourist attraction. In August of that year, the Turkish army advanced up to the Green Line, which is now the border between Turkish and Greek communities. A few hours before Turkish and Greek forces engaged in combat in the streets of Famagusta, the city's entire population fled the area, fearing that there was about to be a massacre. A nearby British military base aided in the evacuation, and many of the city's citizens. But Varocia has remained empty ever since, and hence buildings have started to deteriorate and their contents are looted. Streets are covered with vegetation, and most of the area has been deemed off limits to the public, with only members of the Turkish military and United Nations personnel allowed in. In April of 2018, however, 3 international students, 2 from Latvia and 1 from Poland, cut through the wire fence that had been erected by the Turkish military and snuck into the Forbidden City. The 3 were students at the University of the Republic of Cyprus and had traveled to the area out of curiosity. Once inside, they helped themselves to items from some of the abandoned buildings and took photos of the area. But before they could make their way out again, they were spotted and arrested. They stood trial in a Turkish military court for looting and taking more than 30 photos in a military-controlled area. No further information is available to see what their punishment was, but Turkish officials have made an effort for the students to meet with ambassadors of their respective countries in the buffer zone in order to attempt an amicable resolution to the situation. Number 4. Many people consider Area 51, located in the Nevada Test and Training Range, to be one of the scariest places on Earth, since its true purpose is shrouded in mystery, thanks to the intense secrecy of its contents and the massive amounts of security that protect it. Many people believe that it houses alien technology and even extraterrestrials, that time travel experiments are being carried out, and that teleportation technology has been developed at the site. Though the United States government has always insisted that these rumors are nothing but conspiracy theories, and that nothing nefarious is going on at the base. But many people have traveled to the site to try and satiate their curiosity, often being followed by security personnel as they make their way through the dirt roads that lead up to the facility. On one occasion, a man charged through a security checkpoint and was chased for 8 miles before he exited his vehicle, ignoring requests from the NNSS security officers and sheriff's deputies to halt, and his life was ended. Then in September of 2019, Nye County Sheriff's deputies responded to a report that foreign nationals were trespassing on the secret base. When they arrived in the area, they found a car parked 3 miles past the gate entrance, and 2 Dutch nationals, Govert Sweep and YouTuber T.S. Granzier, were arrested. They told authorities that they did see the no trespassing signs, but they were curious and still wanted to see what they could find. When they were searched, deputies found several cameras, a phone, a laptop, and a drone in their possession. They were booked into the Nye County Detention Center after being charged with trespassing and illegal parking, and would eventually reach a plea agreement that saw them each receiving a year in county jails and fines of $2,280. They were also prohibited from attending events near the site and were to stay at least 500 yards away from security checkpoints for the following year. A condition was added to their agreement that if the two men complied with the conditions of the deal, a charge of conspiracy to trespass would be dismissed. Sweep later stated that they would indeed stay away and would not be causing trouble again. Number 3. Robert Park is a Korean-American human rights activist, missionary, and supporter of the reunification of North and South Korea. He is one of the founding members of the worldwide coalition to stop genocide in North Korea, and is known as a columnist for the English South Korean newspaper, the Korea Herald. When he was a young child, he took an oath of poverty and celibacy, living life as a secular monk. He had at one point considered entering into a monastery, but decided that it was more important to provide service to the disadvantaged while living in the outside world. Thereafter, he adopted many aspects of the monastic life and steered clear of divisive religious organizations. In 2008, he became involved in humanitarian work for North Korean refugees. He had become friends with many North Korean defectors, and was actively participating in protests against North Korea's human rights violations in South Korea. On Christmas Day of 2009, he entered North Korea, crossing the Chinese border after walking across the frozen Tumen River. Before he made it very far, however, he was apprehended by North Korean border guards for illegal entry into the country. He had stated in a media interview before the incident that he felt it was his duty as a Christian to protest in every way possible against North Korea's actions, and that he would be entering the country to make a case for the release of political prisoners, who he considered to be victims of crimes against humanity. After his arrest, he confessed to the crime and issued a public apology. On the 5th of February 2010, the North Korean government pardoned him, and he was deported to Beijing, from where he was flown to the United States. He would later state that his confession had been made under duress and recanted it, since he had been beaten. He would subsequently suffer from PTSD and would be hospitalized for the disorder on multiple occasions, sometimes for months at a time. He would later reveal that he was planning to file a lawsuit against the North Korean government in the US federal court for the mistreatment and intimidation that he suffered while being detained there. Number 2. The Cosmic Room, located in the Turkish capital of Ankara, is a part of the Turkish Army's Special Warfare Headquarters, and it houses highly confidential documents regarding the military, making it a very scary place to try and infiltrate. But in 2009, a former public prosecutor named Mustafa Bilgili did just that when an investigation was launched into an alleged assassination attempt on the former Prime Minister of Turkey. Bilgili, along with 2 judges, searched the top secret military facilities documents for 20 days, and all 3 would ultimately be arrested. It was discovered that they'd accessed a large number of documents, including CDs and hard disks containing state and military secrets. And since the men had entered the facility illegally, they were accused of attempting to organize a coup against the Prime Minister of Turkey. Bilgili was immediately dismissed from the judiciary. He had kept the results of the search in his possession for years, though a lawsuit on the case ended inconclusively. Added to that, he was facing a charge of military espionage, although a former general who was the head of the Special Warfare Department at the time of the search stated that the search was carried out in order to obtain critical documents, such as special warfare plans in the case of a military emergency. He added that judiciary members, including one judge who ordered a search of documents pertaining to unsolved murders to be carried out, were attempting to pin those crimes on the Turkish special forces, but no evidence was ever found that the killings had occurred. Bilgili was ultimately sentenced to 17 years in prison. His assistants were sentenced to 12 and 14 years. They were accused of being members of a movement against the leaders of Turkey, though the group has stated that they were never part of any anti-government activities. Number 1. The Mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor, Qin Shi Huang, is a renowned scary place that houses hundreds of terracotta warrior statues, discovered by 7 men while digging a well in March of 1974. When they had dug to a depth of 6.5 feet, they hit hard ground, then red earthenware, terracotta fragments, bronze arrowheads, and bricks, also made from terracotta. Then in May of 1974, a team of archaeologists traveled to the site to start the first excavations that would eventually become an area known as Pit 1. 2 more pits would eventually be unearthed after drilling was carried out, and after an area of about 23,000 square yards was excavated. 7,000 terracotta statues of warriors and horses, as well as wooden battle chariots, were uncovered. The statues are considered to be of enormous cultural importance, and hence it's off limits to the public. Some of the statues are, however, loaned to museums across the world in order to give members of the public a chance to see them. This was the case in December of 2017, when a man named Michael Roana was visiting the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. On the 21st of that month, Roana was caught on surveillance footage sneaking off from a museum group and entering a blocked-off section of the museum where 10 of the statues were being held. He is then seen taking a selfie with one of the 2,000-year-old sculptures. But rather than being satisfied with this one act of defiance, he decided to take it one inexplicable step further and broke off one of the warrior's thumbs before placing it in his pocket. Museum staff didn't immediately realize that he had damaged the statue, and only on the 8th of January did they discover that the warrior's thumb was missing. They reviewed security footage of the area and observed the crime being committed. A week later, they had identified Roana as the culprit, and FBI agents traveled to his home in Delaware. A special officer knocked on his door, and when Roana answered it, asked if he had anything he wanted to turn over to the FBI. Roana then took him to the upstairs of his house, where he revealed the stolen thumb, which he had been keeping in a drawer in his desk, and he was arrested. The head of the group that loans the statues out to museums told a Chinese television station that a serious protest had been launched, and they're asking the US government to severely punish Roana for his senseless actions. Another official stated that since the terracotta warriors are Chinese national treasures, they resented Roana's theft and destruction of their heritage. Roana was eventually freed on a $15,000 bond, and a pair of experts were sent to the US to aid in the statue's repair. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.